All right, we are live everywhere except Facebook, which I am tuning in for us to go live right now. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Welcome to another episode of the Holistic Sister Circle. Today, I'm super excited to have our spirituality versus religion debate. And this is all about finding that happy medium. So, again, our goal is really to challenge narratives. We get so many questions about a lot of the different topics that are currently trending in the world right now. And I think it's important that not only do you understand where you stand, but you also understand what makes sense for you in the season that you're in and what makes sense for your family as well. This particular conversation, it can be a bit controversial. So for us to start off, I do want us to take 3 big belly breaths together just to ground the room. And then once we do that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So on a count of 3, we're going to breathe in and hold and big exhale. Good. 2 more just like that. Breathing in and hold and exhale. Wonderful. Last one. Breathe in and hold and big exhale. Beautiful. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We have so many incredible speakers with us. And for this particular topic, our conversation, we're going to do a round robin here. So I'm going to ask a question. Based on that question, I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to answer the question. And then I may or may not challenge your narrative. If I do, then great. Let's have a conversation about it. If there is someone else that would like to challenge the narrative as well, I highly recommend that you let us know just by either responding in your chat or raising your hand. The first question is, how do you define spirituality versus religion, and where do they overlap? Tanya, we'll start with you.
We go. Okay, there we go. So the difference between spirituality and religion, I feel that spirituality is really one's own unique connection to whatever they feel is their connection, whether it's, they call it the creator or God or the universe or, I mean, Buddhists don't even believe in God, for example. So I think spirituality is really just that one's own unique relationship and personal experience. And religion to me is kind of like a framework. It can maybe provide, a direction to look in towards, right? And so from what I've discovered, and in my 20s, I was very curious about spirituality, and I read a lot about all the different religions, and they all seem to be pointing to the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing. They're just different paths. And so I think that religion can provide some discipline, maybe, right? Like we're born with this free will, and which is, a huge responsibility. And so I think religion can kind of create a way to direct that will for those that desire it. So I think, spirituality to me is more connected to like mysticism and mystical experiences, and that interconnection, versus religion just being kind of more of like a framework, and I think it rises up out of culture and what's been shared over the millennia.
Thank you for your response. I do have a question coming in. For those who say that they are spiritual, but they're not religious, what would you say to someone like that? And anyone can answer this.
I can answer that. Hi. I think that I'm spiritual. So I used to have a religion. I grew up Baptist, Protestant, and then it was something, the rituals and routines of my religion just didn't resonate with me anymore. Again, it was just, Tanya said, it was a framework, kind of like took you through the religious system of how you grew up. But then it was like, I feel as times change, I believe that the religion stays the same. And that's where I kind of veered off and wanted to find God working in me. So I became more spiritual and let the divine God work through me with different practices that I do now. So it's not religious based anymore. It's more just God working through me to be a good person.
Awesome. Thanks, Maureen. Supriya, question for you. Can someone be deeply spiritual without being religious or vice versa?
That's a really good one. So I actually grew up Hindu. So in a lot of texts in Hinduism, they do say, yes, you can. You can actually be spiritual and not like have the religious elements to it. And there's a lot of very complex things like in Hinduism in itself. So a lot of the deep elements in Hinduism, things like Om and things like the prayer, which is actually we know this as a closed circuit. It's actually a closed circuit, and you put it to your heart, and it actually really does something. Om is actually controls your breath. Um, and these are all elements that are already in Hinduism. So I do believe you can be spiritual and be religious in that aspect. Um, and even in Hinduism, you can take a lot of the things that are in the text. Bhagavad Gita, for example, in Hinduism, talks about doing your duty, and it talks about doing your duty and not expecting. There's a ton of things like in it. So yes, I do believe you can be spiritual, but also take elements of spirituality. I mean, religion.
Supriya, this is another question for you.
Yeah.
Do you mind muting for me until you speak because it's
Okay.
getting an echo? Okay, cool. Thanks. So this question is specifically for you. If someone were to challenge your religion, or if someone that was out there looking to challenge someone's religion, what would you say to that person, knowing that they may be they may both believe in religious structure, but then also a spiritual background?
That's actually a really good question. Um, I wouldn't I wouldn't necessarily go about it in like a challenging aspect, but I also want to challenge them on what do they think is what are the religious aspects that um they want to incorporate, because a lot of the religions, and I know that somebody else said this here, I can't remember who, but a lot of them do say the same thing. We just had Diwali, for example, in the in India. We actually just had Diwali, and that actually is a very good typical story of good winning over evil. And I think that's in pretty much every single text. They have like all of those different elements of good versus evil in there. And we light candles, the diyas. They had the diyas and lighting the candles to represent the light. A lot in so many different religions, lighting the candles, like, in church and everything. You see that in so many. And I just want, if somebody were to challenge those aspects, I want to say, well, what are exactly challenging? Because there's a lot of elements that are the same in those, and a lot of those can be intertwined. It doesn't have to be separate.
Awesome. Thank you, Supriya. This question is for Jess. How has your personal experience shaped your beliefs? How has your personal experiences shaped your beliefs?
Ooh, I don't know if we have enough time to unpack all of that. So I'll try to give it. I want to say that I'm super thankful that you started out with the breaths. That was a very grounding and nice experience. So I would say that before like I go down this rabbit hole of explaining my own history and everything, I kind of wanted to circle back to looking at spirituality versus religion, how they're defined and where they do overlap. I would like to say, though, I'm at a place in my journey right now where to me to approach my interactions and all of my interactions with others from a place of curiosity and attaining knowledge. And so I feel strongly that it's not my responsibility or necessarily appropriate to really define others' religion or spirituality because they're so highly personal and subjective. And I do think, though, that there's some generalities that we could use to describe both. So spirituality, which I am on a spiritual journey. I don't practice religion anymore. It's been 25 years since I practiced the Catholic religion. I feel that spirituality encompasses just a vast array of practices that allow people to really tap into an energy, a feeling, and something that's bigger than themselves. And some generalities that we can use to think about religion are, involving a set of beliefs or practices or rituals to worship and walk in one's own faith. And I'd like to say that I think that they overlap at this notion where both feel that there's a power that's greater than themselves. And I'd love to be able to get to a place where we see that they overlap in a place where both of them exist in peace and love. So those are some things that I wanted to share.
I actually appreciate you sharing that and everyone who just spoke so far. And one of the things that I've noticed too, I grew up Christian, and one of the things that I've realized over the years was there have been so many times where I've felt like I have had to pick a side, where I've had to choose one or the other. It doesn't necessarily just have to be in this perspective in general, but growing up as a Christian and not really having my own relationship with God, it actually didn't do anything but make me wander. And when we are in, I like to call it when we are in the wilderness and we don't know exactly where to go or where to turn, I do want to share this with people that at the end of the day, spirituality is an opportunity for you to figure out what that looks like for you, because everyone's personal experience and journey is so different. And if you're not on a hunt or a chase to go figure that out internally, you are always going to be finding or trying to seek external validation. And you're never going to be happy. Nothing ever is going to make sense for you in a way where you feel like you have to always be on or always be in a movement of trying to figure things out, right? And to Tanya's point, when it comes to a framework, structure can be highly structure can be very great for people. But not everybody may not necessarily want to blend that structure in the same way. However, to Supriya's point as well, we all pretty much do the same thing, even from that framework, right? Because the breath is the breath, the earth is the earth, the water is the water. And how you use it and how you leverage it is always going to be channeled through that spiritual connection that you've had. So if you have questions, and again, keep the questions flowing. I do believe this is a very good topic for us to continue to explore, to be curious of everyone's religion and backgrounds and why they may not necessarily be religious anymore. I do have a question coming in right now. This is for Maureen and Jess. And the question is, why are you no longer religious? Either one can go first. But why are you no longer religious?
Okay. I'll take that. I'll start that. So I was raised as a Catholic and received many sacraments. And the long and short of it is, I had children with an atheist, and I ended up. That was a huge existential crisis for me, because we were going to raise our children without religion, and I really had to dig deep into my soul, and that's when my spiritual journey began. There was a lot of moral conflict for me, because there's so much obligation to the way that we're raised, and you begin to confront, the culture that you were raised with. And now you're saying, oh, all along, I had these set beliefs, and I'm not doing this anymore. What am I saying to my family? What am I saying to my parents? So.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. So my parents took me to church when I was younger. I have 3 siblings. We all used to go to the Baptist church and the church, and every Sunday. And I remember back when I was younger, we stopped going, and my parents never said why. But they were judged because they wouldn't go a couple of Sundays, or if one of us was sick, people were starting to talk in the church about just being judged, and you need to go to church every Sunday and you have to follow. Well, the judgments really got to my parents, and that's when they decided to move on to we found back in the later 90s, a church that brought all, denominations together. This was a place where, everybody could practice being on a more spiritual level in the church. We practiced meditation in the church, and everybody that wasn't getting from their own religion, because of the strict routines, rituals that you go through when you're growing up in a religion, we found there. And that was the turning point for my family and I. And it was me, my twin sister, my parents went there, and they did workshops there, and we went inside and we just got quiet. And I think so much today, it's a lot of what's out there, and nobody goes in to get quiet anymore and really feel the spirit that's already in them, because it's not out there. And so I reside with that. I have a lot of my own routines regularly that I do that bring me, that bring out my spiritual side, and they really help me. So I don't necessarily have to go to church or have a religion to know that God's working inside me every day.
And real quick, Maureen, when you're saying that and talking about, not having to go to church to feel that God, or a higher power lives inside of you, I feel like this, I connect deeply with nature. And when I hike and I'm alone with nature, for me, I strongly feel a presence of something so much bigger than myself. And it's something that I really never felt before when I was at church as a Catholic. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you both for sharing. And one of the things I do want to mention here that I find very interesting, and this is actually going to be a question for Supriya while she's here. We'll talk more about backgrounds and what everyone does a little bit later. But for this question, one of the things that I tend to get in just community overall is when I do have these conversations, like with Jess was saying, with a higher power. So again, for me, I do believe in God, I do believe in Christ, but there are times where I've had conversations with people and they may have different spirits talking to them. They may have an encounter with someone that is maybe a little dark or maybe a little light. I don't know. I've never encountered that before. But when someone is having those type of spiritual connections, how can they determine if it is someone who they should actually connect with? And is this a journey that they should continue to move forward with from a spiritual perspective. And I'm going to share why I'm asking about Supriya in a second. But at first, I want you to share your background a little bit before you answer the question.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, so my background, I have, I've been I have spiritual experiences since I was 4 years old. Had astral projection when I was like 4 years old. Went outside my bed, like saw myself outside my body. And ever since then, I've been seeing spirits. I've been seeing spirits, had a bunch of spiritual experiences. And at 12 years old, my mother had her own spiritual awakening, which led all of us as a family to have our own awakening. Um, and I've been doing this whole thing, um, in being involved in spirituality since I was 12. It's interesting that we came up with that this topic came up because struggling. I know we talked about struggling between religion and spirituality. I didn't have that much of like that divide, but my mother has, and she was deeply religious, and like went to the temple like every single week. And I went to our own Hindu version of Sunday school every week, and she had like an issue with that because she didn't think like we you could intertwine both with that. But she did eventually become a Reiki healer, and I'm one too, and I became one as well. And like this all working with the chakras, in which is laid out in Hinduism and Buddhism, is what I work with now, and I work with shadows in people. So, and taking that, working with their healing and all that stuff, taking that out and manifesting. So yeah, this has been that whole journey has been involved since like I was 12 years old.
Thanks for sharing. And then can you share a little bit about if someone, oh, go ahead and mute for a second.
Oh.
Thanks. If someone were confused or battling between their spirituality of, what they've seen, what they haven't seen, what they're feeling. And a lot of this is to Jess's point as well, right? She said when she's in nature, she feels a higher power. Sometimes when we think about this higher power, what is that? What is that? What could that be? And I'm curious to know, have you ever encountered, just working with clients or even with yourself or family members, where they've had to differentiate the type of spirits that they're actually aligning with?
I love that you asked this because I was just in India for 5 weeks, and I was talking with my aunt, and she couldn't tell me what she was describing when she was at the temple over there. And in India, there's this ancient temple in Bangalore, in the neighborhood Shivaji Nagar neighborhood in Bangalore. One of the oldest temples, over like thousands and thousands of years old, over there. And she tells me every time she goes over there, and she's not really involved in spirituality. She's very religious though. And she tells me every time I have an experience that I can't really explain. And every time I pray there, something happens. Something positive happens in my life. And I tell her, and I just sit there, and I'm like, okay, like there is, like you felt the ancient wisdom in that place. Because in Hinduism, particularly in Hinduism and a lot of older Eastern cultures, a lot of the things are done with intention, especially in a temple like that. Like there's a lot of intention being put in that temple, and everybody kind of feels the energy of that. They do all these sacred rituals in that temple. So, and what she did was her own version of prayer, and what I like to call manifestation. And like things like that. And she did an offering, which in Hinduism, yeah, you do present an offering, flowers, all of those stuff. She presented an offering, and that it's essentially putting your energy out to the universe and then coming back. So she actually integrated a lot of spirituality into religion. And so again, can't really speak for a lot of the other religions, but I can tell you in Hinduism, it's one and the same. It really is. Like, there's a lot of intentional things that they did way, 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 way back then when they were building these temples, when they were building these landmarks. They put them into vortexes and things like that, if you really look at them. So a lot of it's intertwined.
Thank you. Tanya, this question is for you. How can we foster understanding between people of different beliefs? How can we foster understanding between people of different beliefs?
Fostering understanding. I think that I think we can overcomplicate things when it comes to people with different beliefs. I've had experiences where you can feel that you're bumping up against something, or a person's like closed-minded to something, right? Like they're like, nope, I don't believe that. This is my belief. And really all you can do in those situations is just, okay, I respect it. People have their boundaries, and, unless there's an invitation for their beliefs to be challenged and they're of a certain mindset and they're curious, perhaps people can have more discussions. But it's like religion's kind of like politics in a lot of ways. If you're going to look at religion, it's like you were saying before, like, whose side are you on, right? And so it can just, look at all the wars, right? It's basically religion has caused the most wars of anything on the planet. And so we really do have to, I think, move into a different place if we're going to evolve as a species. It's like, okay, religion perhaps has helped us to a certain degree, but now it's like, okay, can we, so back to your question, how can we be more tolerant and all of that? I think that if you can just strive to understand rather than to judge, and just see the person's, even just with intention, like, Supriya's talking about, intention is super powerful. So if you're having a discussion with somebody or a group of people that are different than you, choosing to acknowledge the humanity within them, like, we're all human, we all want peace, we all want love, we all want to belong, we all want to be understood. If we can just boil all of that, really, like, take religion and just kind of, forget all the rules, like, you have to bow in this direction, or you can't eat a certain thing, or, you have to pray so many times a day, or you can only wear this kind of a outfit, or, all those different rules. If you can go beyond that and just through the power of the heart, and I love, like, the Heart Math Institute has done so much research around the human heart. And so if we can kind of really tune more into that, we can coexist perhaps more peacefully, and just accept that we all come from different faiths and we all have different practices, and that there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, there's unity in diversity. And so, yeah.
Absolutely. Whoever else wants to chime in on this topic as well, please do. But one of the things I love what you said, Tanya, was at the end of the day, we all want peace and we all want love. And when you think about spirituality, that's what it's all about. It's about uniting people, meeting people where they are, having the conversations, and just being curious and being open-minded. And one of the things that made me think about this too was business, right? Everyone here is a business owner. And one of the things I think about is when you're entering someone else's business and you're leveraging their frameworks, those are their frameworks. That's their experience in their business. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to take every single thing that they say word for word. That doesn't mean that you're going to have the same exact business model that they will. That doesn't mean that you're going to make the same amount of money in the same way. It just means that it's a framework and it's a structure to at least help you open up to honestly have the confidence and the intuition to be courageous to go after what that looks like. So you now can create your own frameworks. And I was thinking about this with Maureen's point where she says, well, I have rituals that I do that work very well for me. And I would love for you, to share that as well. Because for those who are listening, you're going to find if you again continue to think about what everyone else is doing and have all of these external factors happening in your life and never getting to the root of your own spirituality and your own spiritual journey, it's going to be very difficult for you to stay grounded in anything. And everyone has something that they do that they continue to practice on a daily basis because it works for them. So I just, I challenge anyone who's listening as well is as you're discovering what spirituality means to you and as you are figuring out what rituals make sense for you, also understand that the frameworks that you're choosing as well are just guidelines to help you along this spiritual journey as you continue to rediscover who you are and whose you are. So, I wanted to share that because I was like, that was right on time. But if anyone else has anything that they would like to share as well, please go ahead.
So meditation is a big one in my life. I twice a day, once a day at least. It wasn't as much probably 6 months ago, but I've incorporated it so much more as I'm going through growing my business with Jessica, our life coaching business. And I'm just seeing just meditating every day. I have a daily word affirmation. It's very spiritual. My parents get me a yearly subscription. I do yoga. I pray. I do personal prayers at the end of the day, during the day. But meditation is my big one. And actually nature, getting out and just enjoying the air, because we're all connected. We're connected with animals. We're connected with nature. If we all saw that we were connected and that we have so much to give in peace and love, and we were more accepting and we weren't always butting heads, Tanya, we would have so much more peace in this world if we just realized we just accepted each other for who we're all unique in our own way and our own practices. And what may be important for me as far as being spiritual, somebody else does something different. It looks like something different. Our practices are, all unique to what works for us. But meditation is a big one for me. Gets me quiet, gets rid of the distractions in our head. It grounds me. It's the end of the day and I lay down or I sit there and I'm like, and I just feel a world of peace after a day of busyness or worry. It clears my head and I go into a good sleep.
That's so true. We have someone that just entered the chat. Spirituality is totally individual, which is so true because I will tell you, me meditating was very hard. Mm-hmm. My mind would be all over the place. I couldn't focus, right? It was something that had to be practiced consistently and then going in with an intention too. So for those who maybe you don't meditate, maybe you want to, right? These are just some different tools and things of that to help you get into the state of being intentional so that you can figure out what that spiritual journey and that awakeness looks like for you. Would anyone else like to share on this topic before we move on?
I would. Yes, just speaking to Maureen's point, I think meditation and Reiki has been a really big part of my own journey. And like I said, like there and like walking in nature has been so big, and then grounding after walking has been huge for me, calming the nervous system and everything like that. And it's funny because if you do go into Buddhism and Hinduism, you will see and actually read what they do in those texts. They will talk about things like walking. They will talk about things like meditating and counting breath and doing what you feel like you're supposed to do at the soul level. And they talk a lot about connecting with that inner that soul, that inner soul. So which I always find interesting um, as well. So doing things, and then breath work, Om is such a huge part, and then the different chakra chants, which I like to do as well, are huge in centering as well.
Yeah, this is so good. I know, I've learned this from myself, well, as well. One of the things that I've learned is when you actually sit down and you kind of study your body, like when you're going through this, whether you're going through, I'm trying to think of something. So say for example, you're on a sales call, right? And on this sales call, you're having like your stomach is super tense, or you feel super overwhelmed or heightened, right? That can be a moment where you may need to take a step back and to have those moments of breath, or to maybe go out for a walk in nature. And I just, again, I share these moments because I think it's important that we do study our bodies on a daily basis. How is our mood when we're entering this conversation? How is our mood when we're doing this task or this chore? And allowing that to help guide you on what aspects you or tools you may need to do. Maybe you've never tried breath work, and maybe now is a great time to do it, right? Amara says, what place does religion have in the modern 2025 and beyond world? Does it need to expand its scope? This is a really great question. And anyone who wants to answer can. Just make sure everyone else mutes.
I would love to answer that. So I there's a Zen Buddhist teacher. His name's Adyashanti, and he talks a lot about consciousness. And one of the things he said that really struck me, that was really powerful, is that consciousness is always expanding, right? It's always moving towards the unknown or the dark or what's not yet been illuminated. And so this idea that religion is something that's always going to stay the same, it's an impossibility, right? I mean, just if we zoom back and look at the whole history of humanity, you can see how religion has birthed other religions and other religions, and it too is connected to the everything, right? And so there's a and I'd like to bring up the word evolution as well, because evolution, consciousness, I think it's kind of one and the same thing, in that we're on a trajectory of evolution, which is much bigger than any single one of us, right? And so we're here in this body, in this life, in this time, having this particular experience. But to ask, when you ask the question, okay, is religion something that needs to change or dismantle or turn into something else? Of course it's going to at some point, who knows, maybe thousands of years from now, religion won't even be something that exists. We'll be in a totally different level of consciousness, right? And so when you look throughout the evolution of humanity, there's been these huge quantum leaps in consciousness, right? Starting from the kind of first humans to discovering agriculture, to then, kings and queens and the pharaohs and all of that, and then to industry and inventions and electricity, and so each time it's like there's this quickening, and there's this, And so we're at this stage right now where it's like, we're kind of, what feels like to me, I'd be curious to see what you ladies think, but we're kind of entering this, like, the quickening and this point in humanity where it's like, okay, we're coming to that edge of, and this is what I feel, maybe not everybody feels it, but we're coming to this edge of, like, okay, what's next? There's a lot that isn't working, right? And so evolution is always striving towards a greater coherence. It's not moving towards destruction unless destruction is the necessary part for it to then continue to expand, right? So that's what I have to say about that.
Awesome. Thank you. Is anyone else want to share on that topic? It actually leads into my next question as well.
Yeah, so just, going off of what Tanya's saying, that's why I go inside, because as everything is evolving and we're seeing what's going on in our world right now, we can't control any of it. We can't control what's going on, but we can control how we are inside as people, how we treat people, and just how sometimes I'm blissfully ignorant because I'm not a big news watcher. And if I need to know something, I normally hear about it from somebody else. And I'm like, well, there you go. Now I heard it. I know what's going on in the world, but I don't let it consume me. And that's where I say, okay, just, keep going inside, Maureen, because you don't have control out there. And a lot of people think we have control and we want to fight, and we have sides and we want to fight. But until we come together in the middle, we're going to still keep having this. So hopefully, we get more people that want to, come together, connect, see a gray area, because we're so far right and so far left. And it's sad because it doesn't have to be this way. But everybody is who they are. They're unique. It's how they've grown up. It's their religious beliefs. It's their political beliefs. It's shaping who we are. And until we decide we want to come together in a different way, that's where I go inside to try to find my own peace, because I can't control what's out there.
Come together and also change our approach. And I've heard this word since the beginning, just curiosity. Come from a place of curiosity. I might not agree with you, but hey, tell me more about that. I want to understand. I want to know. Because sometimes we find out, it's just like you talked about, consciousness and expansion. We're not going to get there until we change that approach and just come from that place of curiosity.
Absolutely. And I do want to talk about this again, too, just from Tanya's point when she was sharing that at the end of the day, it's a lot about what, we can't control that evolution. We can't control what Maureen was saying as well. We can't control any of that. But what we can do is we can control ourselves. We can control how we move in the world, how we connect with each other in the world. And are we showing love? Are we being open? Are we, being curious, to Jess's point? Because I will tell you, for me growing up, there wasn't an opportunity for me to have a different point of view. I was completely shut down from that. So I had to learn, okay, if I have a different point of view, does that mean I have to be quiet? Does that mean that I can't talk? Does that mean that, what I'm saying doesn't matter? So I had challenges with that, and I had to grow through that and have my own experiences to realize, wow, that person just was really just closed off to being curious. They were closed off to a different point of view. And that's okay, but I'm not going to spend my time there, right? I want to spend my time with people who are actually open to communicate and open to, having these conversations, because it's the only way that's going to allow us to understand where we are all coming from, but then also to give us the courage and the momentum that we need to also pivot when we need to. So I appreciate this. My last question for everyone, I would love for everyone to answer this one, is what does it mean to live in alignment with your faith in today's world? What does it mean to live in alignment with faith in today's world?
To live your truth. When you're living your truth and it feels right and everything, your actions align with your values, when you're living your truth, there's your alignment, whatever that is for you.
Anyone else?
Yeah. I would like to say, I would like to add on to that is walking with true authenticity, and doing things and not controlling the outcome of what would happen with that, and not controlling and not putting a power outside of yourself either, like knowing that you have the power. I think that's like going to be the best thing, and then intertwining, learning how to take those different parts of your faith and intertwining that with your spirituality too. And that was something that I had to learn quite a bit over the last 5, 6, 7 years, in that. And it wasn't too much of a challenge, but stepping into the authenticity and being scared of what people originally thought of my spirituality was more of the challenge than anything.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too, with the authentic piece and, trust, is to give yourself the grace and the freedom to change, you know, because I certainly have had experiences where I choose something to follow and I think, this is it. I found the answer. And you're on that path and you're on that path, and suddenly you're like, oh, wait, this isn't the answer. And you have to be willing to be like a baby again and like finding your footing. And so, yeah, especially in today's world, how do you keep having the faith? Yeah, and I think everyone kind of pointed to practices that keep you connected to yourself, because there's so many distractions. There's a lot of noise, you know, things are speeding up, technology is exploding, and it's happening so fast. Like, the mind can just get overwhelmed. And so, rooting ourselves back into staying connected to our bodies, and just the power of simplicity, and the power of rest, and the power, realizing that time is an illusion, um, and that you have plenty of time to live your life. You have plenty of time to discover who you are, and just trusting in that.
Great. I love, this is amazing. You ladies are amazing. I just want to also say that be the change you want to see. We're so busy trying to say, you should do this, you should do that, and then things will change. Nope, doesn't work that way. If we're the changes that we want to see, then everything will change around us. Maybe not at the time we want, but it definitely will. And we have to be patient, and we have to be kind to ourselves. We have to be true to ourselves. And we just have to stick with the routines that work through us daily to keep us going on that peaceful, loving path.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. This has been fantastic. Before we end, I would love for each one of you just to share who you are, what you do, and again, everyone's information will be in the description notes of this episode, so you can go check their profiles out and connect with them further. But just give us a little general, quick sentence about who you are and what you do. Maureen, we can start with you.
Hi, I'm Maureen. I'm a mindset and identity life coach. And we are on Facebook, because Jess is my business partner. We are called Growth Catalyst. We're on LLC. And we also just started our own group called Next Chapter Women. And that's on Facebook too.
Awesome. Jess?
Yeah, so we're certified life coaches that specialize in identity and mindset work. And we're just on a mission to empower women over 40 that have independent, grown children that are kind of questioning what their purpose is now, because being a mom is some of the most important work that there is. And, when your kids don't need you the same way, you start to look back inside and it's time to go on another journey again. And yeah, so that's what we do.
That's spiritual milk right there. Tanya?
Yeah, so I am an energy healer. I do family constellations work, which works with ancestral trauma and just dealing with things that don't necessarily start with you. And so it's a really deep, powerful process, works at the level of the soul. And then the other thing that the other way that I serve is that I help individuals and families start to understand how to begin to create wealth, a foundation for wealth. So bridging the spirituality and the material world together is what I do. My website's newearthconsciousness.com. And so the other modality I also work with is emotional mind integration, which is working with the subconscious and rewiring ourselves so that we're not getting triggered in the same way, so that we can move forward. So thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Absolutely. Supriya?
Yes, so I am an intuitive energy alignment coach. I actually help people find their own inner power within the chakras. I actually can see chakras in people, see where they're energetically at. And what I do is I see what their attachments are, what the shadows are, and I work with people to help clear them and heal them and help them create anything that they want in their life, creating their best reality, whether it's abundance, whether it's finding their own empowerment, finding their own self-love, and everything that they truly want and desire is, and I help them do that through the chakras. I'm at Supriya the Healer, one word, Supriya, Supriya, the Healer, and my website is thespiritdigital.com.
Amazing. Thank you all. Supriya, mute for me. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And again, we are here every single week at 2 p.m. Eastern. You already know at this point what I do, but if you're tuning in and from our lovely community and you've never been a part of the Holistic Sister Circle, I have, again, the Holistic Sister Circle podcast, where we actually do either debate style shows like this one, or we also do one-on-one. So if you ever have something that you're potentially promoting or launching and you want to be a part of the Holistic Sister Circle community, you totally can. I also have Podcast Playground for female entrepreneurs. So those who would like to start their own show, start their own community, and leverage it through voice, I will help you do that as well through using or leveraging podcasts to build influence and sales. So super excited for everyone here. Thank you all so much for joining. Until next time, we'll see you next week.